Hello and good evening, and thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Andrea Speak TV. Here, where I bring you commentary you can use. Now, listen, this is breaking news. I was actually reporting earlier about. I did a video earlier on the fact that could a climate emergency be declared, and I just recently saw this article. This information does come from NBC News, and the title of the article, which you can see on the screen, says Manchin strikes major deal with Schumer on climate, taxes, and health care. Okay, they will call the bill the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022 and said in a joint statement that the Senate will consider it next week. All right, before we get into it, y'all, please make sure that you like this video. Hold on just a second. Let me take this off the screen here. Thank you all so much for your support. Okay, make sure that you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already subscribed. Make sure you like this video, share your thoughts and comments on the video, and we're going to go ahead and get started. All right, so this is breaking news again, just announced, I believe, today. And this information, as I shared, comes from NBC News, and it says Manchin strikes major deal with Schumer on climate, taxes, and health care. So they're introducing a new piece of legislation. As I shared, it is called the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022. And the article also says that the Senate is going to consider it next week. All right, let me give you all some information on what exactly is going on. Okay, now, according to NBC News, in an unexpected breakthrough, Senator Joe Manchin, okay, a Democrat from West Virginia, reversed his opposition to quickly moving a broad filibuster proof bill Wednesday and announced he will support a package that includes major investments in drug pricing, as well as provisions to address climate change and taxes on the wealthy. Okay. Manchin, the article says, announced the agreement in a joint statement with Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, a Democrat from New York, after months of negotiations between the two appeared to break down recently. The deal represents a major breakthrough for elements of President Joe Biden's agenda that appeared to be all but dead. Okay. Now, here's a quote by in a joint statement by Schumer and Manchin that says the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022 will make a historic down payment on deficit reduction to fight inflation, invest in domestic energy production and manufacturing, and reduce carbon emissions by roughly 40% by 2030. Okay, there it goes again, y'all. Remember, I told you all I'm starting to see 2030 and 2050 in several articles, several news videos or other videos where they're talking about climate change. Okay, so that was a statement by Schumer and Manchin. That was a joint statement. Now they also went on to say that the bill will finally allow Medicare to negotiate for prescription drugs and lower healthcare costs for millions of Americans. Additionally, they said we have reached agreement with President Biden and Speaker Pelosi to pass comprehensive permitting reform legislation before the end of this fiscal year. Okay. They also said we urge every member of the U.S. Senate to support this important legislation. Okay. Now, the article also says the two Democrats said the text of the deal will be submitted to the Senate parliamentarian on Wednesday evening. Okay, this evening, and that the full Senate will consider it next week. Now, the article also says that the legislation still needs the support of all 50 Democratic senators to become law without hope of winning GOP support. But Manchin, the article says, who represents a deeply conservative state, okay, has been the biggest holdout to a major bill for months, giving a version of the proposal strong odds of passing the Senate. Okay, and I believe that they're referring to the Build Back Better Act. Now, the article says it would also have to pass the House before reaching Biden's desk. Okay, in a statement Wednesday, Biden praised the deal. Okay, now I'm actually going to share my screen again. I'll come back to it, but I'm going to share a statement that he released that was released on whitehouse.gov. and we'll talk about his comments. Now, according to a one-page summary, let's talk about this Inflation Reduction Act of 2022. Now, according to a one-page summary, the bill will include $739 billion. Oh my goodness, did y'all hear the number that I just said? According to a one-page summary, the bill will include $739 billion in new revenues through a 15% corporate minimum tax, prescription drug savings, added IRS enforcement, and it will limit the so-called carried interest tax break. Okay. The bill will also include $369 billion in spending on energy security and climate change. Wow, that's a lot. And $64 billion in funding for the Affordable Care Act, for a total of $433 billion in spending. Y'all, where is this money going to come from? We're already dealing with inflation. Where, like, who's going to end up paying for all of this in the long run? Okay, those are the questions that I feel like we should be asking. Okay. There will be more than $300 billion in deficit reduction, the one-page summary added. In a statement of his own, Manchin rebutted suggestions that he deceived Democrats or backed away from items he said he favors. Democrats' article says were furious earlier this month when Manchin suggested he would oppose including climate and tax provisions in the deal. Here's a quote where he said, "With respect to my position, I have never and will never walk away from solving the problems facing the nation we all love." Manchin said in a statement, "I strongly support the passage of common sense policies," he called it, "that reduce inflation and focus on the major challenges confronting America today and in the future." He also added, and I quote, "For too long, the reconciliation debate in Washington has been defined by how it can help advance Democrats' political agenda called Build Back Better. Build Back Better is dead, and instead we have the opportunity to make our country stronger," he says, "by bringing Americans together." Okay. 2 weeks ago, the article says Manchin had conveyed to Schumer he was willing to quickly move on drug pricing and health insurance funding, but that he wanted to wait until mid-August to advance major investments in climate change or taxes, sources said at the time. Okay. Manchin spokesperson Sam Runyon said, and I quote, "Today's announcement is not a reversal of anything." Okay. The carried interest provision could be a problem for Senator Kirsten Sinema, a Democrat out of Arizona, who last year indicated to party leaders that she opposed closing the tax break, which primarily affects investment managers. Her office declined to immediately comment Wednesday, the article says, on the provision or the broader Schumer-Manchin deal. Okay. But it also represents a small slice of the larger package at an estimated $14 billion in revenue and is unlikely to prevent a version of the legislation from passing. Okay. In the House, the article says early progressive reaction was positive. Here's a quote. It says, if it's all true and if the language is really reflects what the top lines are, it's a huge victory for the American people." Is a quote by Representative Pramila Jayapal, Democrat out of Washington, the leader of the Progressive Caucus. Okay. This person also was quoted as saying, "It's a really important set of investments in people's health care, keeping costs down, extending the subsidies, and climate change." Okay. Do you all think that any of these key provisions that I mentioned, do you think these are in any way a solution to uh, fighting climate change? And as the act suggests, do you feel that it anyway will reduce inflation? Okay. Now, I also want to share my screen with you. And I want to show you from whitehouse.gov, I want to show you a statement that President Biden released on today. Let me go to that article right here. Thank you all so much for supporting the channel. I appreciate you all so very much. Okay, here's a statement from President Biden on the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022. Okay, and I'm going to read it here for you. Okay, now the article says, the statement which was released today Wednesday, July 27, 2022. And it's titled Statement from President Biden on the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022. Okay. Now, and these are in the words of President Biden. Okay. So please keep that in mind as I'm reading. All right. He says, this afternoon, I spoke with Senator Schumer. Well, before I say this, if you don't know, they are saying that our president is recovering from being diagnosed with, the major thing that, the pandemic, the recent pandemic was about. And so, from my understanding, he is recovering from that. I believe, if I'm correct, that, it was said that he um, had tested negative. Okay. So, regardless whether I, agree or disagree with, many of his policies and actions, I hope that, he is able to get better soon. Okay. But did you also know that the day before he was diagnosed with the thing, did you all know that he made a statement where he um stated that he had cancer, and then the very next day he was diagnosed with this. So I'm not sure what's going on, or the timing of all of that, but I know there were also some questions surrounding that. But again, I hope that he is able to make a speedy recovery, so that he can be better. Okay, but here is his statement. Okay, he said, this afternoon I spoke with Senator Schumer and Manchin and offered my support for the agreement that they have reached on a bill to fight inflation and lower costs for American families. Okay, he says that with this agreement, we have a chance to make prescription drugs cheaper by allowing Medicare to negotiate lower prices, and we can lower health insurance costs for 13 million Americans by an average of $800 a year for families covered under the Affordable Care Act. Okay, this is what he's saying in his statement, and I'm also showing it on the screen now. President Biden also said we will improve our energy security and tackle the climate crisis by providing tax credits and investments for energy projects. This will create thousands of new jobs and help lower energy costs in the future. This bill will reduce the deficit beyond the record setting $1.7 trillion in deficit reduction we have already achieved this year, which will help fight inflation as well. And he says we will pay for all of this by requiring big corporations to pay their fair share of taxes with no tax increases at all for families making under $400,000 a year. Okay. He also goes on to say this is the act the American people have been waiting for. This is the action, I'm sorry, the American people have been waiting for. This addresses the problems of today, which he says are high healthcare costs and overall inflation, as well as investments in our energy security for the future. He says, I will have more to say on this later. For now, I want to thank Senator Schumer and Senator Manchin for the extraordinary effort that it took. I'm sorry. I will, he says, I will have more to say on this later. For now, I want to thank Senator Schumer and Senator Manchin for the extraordinary effort that it took to reach this result. If enacted, he says this legislation will be historic, and I urge the Senate to move on this bill as soon as possible and for the House to follow as well. Okay. All right. So, again, I wanted to bring you all breaking news that it was just announced the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022. Hearing, what the act is allegedly going to provide, do you think any of these measures at all, um, are solutions to reduce inflation? Okay. Do you think that it seems like from what I see is mentioned, they're talking about making prescription drugs cheaper, allowing Medicare to negotiate lower prices, lower health insurance. Are these the major causes or are these the major factors in, what am I trying to say, y'all? Are these the major factors that are driving higher and higher inflation? Are these real solutions? You all let me know your thoughts in the comments. I appreciate your support. Let me know what you think about this new Inflation Reduction Act of 2022. I do see a lot where they talk about the climate crisis and providing tax credits, energy products. Do you think the title of the act is misleading? Are these in any way factors that are going to lower or reduce inflation, as the name of the act suggests. Okay. You all let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you all so much for tuning in to another episode of Andrea Speaks TV. Make sure that you, if you have not subscribed to the channel, please be sure to subscribe. That way you can stay updated, connected, informed whenever I do upload new content every week. And I appreciate you all so much for your support. All right, stay tuned for more news and commentary you can use right here on Andrea Speaks TV. Thank you.